Jai Hind and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. As you can see, I have with me Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar, who's going to tell us a little bit about the Chinese military. A lot has been spoken about this. Some people actually say on one part they're very strong, they're becoming stronger, and so on and so forth. And we also see a very contrary view which comes out of China itself. Sir, good evening and welcome to the show.
Good evening. Thanks a lot for inviting me for the show once again, and a good evening to all our viewers. Right. So we're going to discuss the PLA. Interesting topic.
So we've done this before. We've gone through 6 episodes
Six
discussing each
episodes. Yeah.
force. So I want to put that out right at the beginning, and after the finishing of the show, I will put the links of that playlist in the chat box, so you guys can actually see those particular shows where we actually went through each force and discussed, what they are and what they have, and we've probably missed a lot of things because they've got so many things, and each force is like that. So there are a lot of things, but still we were able to actually bring about a certain picture. So today, the picture has changed quite a bit. We now know a lot of things that we didn't know before.
Yep. I agree with you.
I want to basically take 3 questions, one on the Air Force, one on the Army, and one on the Navy. And we'll kind of discuss the strategic forces and stuff like that in the interim rocket forces and all that stuff as well, sir. So let's start with the Navy, sir. Uh, there was a report that came out on the PLA Daily, wherein a vice captain of the Navy actually termed their position as equipment waiting training.
Yeah. That is actually a very interesting. What shall I say? Article. Uh, Look, why it's interesting is because one, for the first time, something of this kind has come out in South China Morning Post, right? And it, I think, also came out somewhere in the one of the PLA dailies.
PLA Daily,
That's
sir,
where, yeah, and that's where South China Morning Post picked it up and
picked
put
it
it
up
out.
from.
Uh, it's interesting because it tells you that they have problems at command level. It's one thing to grow your, force technologically, equipment wise, but it's another thing to have people in command. Uh, Look, I'm telling you from the experience of going through 3 cycles of expansion in the artillery in my
Hmm.
entire lifetime. Okay, I'm not talking of just one, 3. The last expansion was underway when I left the army. Every time you expand your system, the first thing you look at is leadership, leadership at command level. Okay, and you just can't. It has a lot of ramifications. It has ramifications on promotions, it has ramifications on availability, it has ramifications on training, it has ramifications on actual command. You see, what happens is when a system expands,
Hmm.
right? See, I'll put it this way. I took over command when I had about 21 years of service, which I thought was late. You know, I was 40 already, physically not that fit anymore, right? Ideal time to take over command is about 35 odd. You have the right mix of fitness and maturity. I took it up late. Then when I saw the expansion taking place, I saw a drop in, you know, the command profile, the age profile. Severe drop. Now it's down to 32. Okay. Now that's what happens. Now if you have a system, suddenly you expand that system, you drop the age profile. That's good from a particular point of view, but it's very bad from man management point of view, HR point of view, and command point of view, maturity point of view. A commanding officer needs a lot of maturity, and especially in a ship, a captain. in command needs much more than mature. See, look, the bulk of our existence in the armed forces is not about fighting. Fighting only consumes probably less than 5% of a career. The rest 95% is preparing for war, that 5%. And if you
Mm.
don't prepare well, you're out. So if you don't have commanders, you don't, and if they don't have commanders, they've come to a stage where they can't produce leaders. And if they go down, they're going to be immature leaders, inexperienced leaders. As it is, China is suffering from inexperience.
Mm. Mm.
So leadership is important. And in a communist system, the leadership is all the more important because there's absolutely no democracy there. See, contrary to what you think in command in our system, while all armed forces tend to be autocratic,
In nature.
hierarchy,
Mm.
but the fundamental tenets of democracy, where you speak to the men, you
Take
interact
feedback.
with them,
Mm.
take feedback, and everything, keep your pulse on men, everything is very important. And for us, that's a very major consideration in command. Now, if your age goes down and you don't have that maturity to deal with men, and the communist system doesn't deal with people as human beings, they deal with a bit of in a different manner. We've all seen it. That guy is supposed to obey like an idiot. Okay. And that's what we have seen this entire country doing during this COVID time. Um, so you're not going to have an effective uh, unit. And if this problem is there in the PLA, I suspect it will be there in the Air Force and the Navy also. So that to me revealed something about command. And if you remember, we spoke about this business way back that look, their commanders are poor. Huh? We spoke about this in one of our series. I remember this very distinctly. So this is something new which we need to file in, right? And correlated with what we see on ground. You see, it's just not what you and I discuss makes up everything. So this is a very important input for our office or hierarchy to factor in and assess the situation on ground because you keep meeting them, in border meetings and patrol meetings and flag meetings and all those and take a call.
Mm.
That's my take on it.
Indeed, I think you've hit the nail on the head, sir, without saying anything further. Uh, you know, and I want to take a minute and actually threadbare something before I go to the next question. So, a lot of people say that, yeah, why would the Chinese have this thing that appear to be weak when you're strong? So, why would the Chinese come and tell you the truth that we have these problems? Now, to that, when you hear it from Xi Jinping himself,
Hmm.
generals are fired. What else do you?
See, it's not only a matter of generals are fired. If you see every time Xi Jinping keeps going around and saying prepare for war, train, prepare for war, yeah, war, all that. And they made training as close to battle conditions as possible, which can never be there. Okay, and there are a lot of emphasis you see coming out of the thing that you know a stress on leadership. Another problem which China has in their leadership hierarchy, right? And I think they learn it very fast. That's corruption. They're, PLA. Yeah, it's a fact. I'm not joking. PLA is an army and a system which has a lot uh, of it used to have a lot of businesses. People, it was a empire in an empire. People were making money on the thing. They were owning businesses. Um, they had their discipline was absolutely not so great. When Xi Jinping came and has done a lot of things to streamline that and get professionalism into the force. So there's a problem in that. Then there are reports which keep coming, which I've read, where they fudge training. See, we think that they're a well-trained army, and all that, but they've this isn't written in their documents that they fudge training. Now, you fudge training, you have a lineage of not being very true in command. Um, so it's translating down here. So I think it's a very serious problem they face. We might not, uh, you know, take cognizance of it immediately, but I think we need to.
Indeed, continuing on the Navy, sir, last month, a missile boat was sent across. I mean, not a really a missile boat. I may be wrong in my, you know, terminology, but a mid-sized boat, not a very large boat, lower than a destroyer sort of a thing, was sent 1,500 miles away from the coastline of China, sir. And that has been like the talk of town for the Chinese media.
Yeah. Look,
Now, what does that
that's
tell you, sir?
it tells me that they're very weak. As simple as that.
Now, we discussed in our show the difference between a brown water and a blue water navy, and
Oh
they've
yeah.
got most of them close to the coastline, sir.
See, yeah, they've got mostly they. Part of the reason is they've not been able to cross the first chain of islands. Second chain of islands is too far. I think the Indian Ocean is third chain for them. Okay, but whereas we go routinely from here to Andaman and back as if it's so that itself takes us 1,600 kilometers in one go. So there's a big difference between the way they have trained and the way we train and the way they have run their, uh, brought up their uh, armed forces and us. There's a lot of hype. You see, I mean, I read a very interesting line in something which I was reading today. It says every army is very good on paper, very strong on paper, till the first bullet is fired.
Bullets, sir. Where did I read this somewhere as well? I don't know where, sir.
Okay, every army is very strong on paper till the first bullet is fired.
Bullets.
And
Yes,
I
sir.
think Ukraine has proved that. Taliban has proven it against USA.
So many examples.
And
Vietnam, this, that.
so I think my hunch is it's the same um, with the China.
Of course, the another thing is that we also notice, and we can't dwell too much into the naval force and this and that because of I want to cover the other forces as well. Uh, their numbers are going to be in a turmoil because I mean, in 2023, I believe there were about 30 of these submarines. Sorry, 18 submarines and another 12 or 13 other ships are retiring. They're going to take them off. So
See,
there were famous numbers, sir.
there's one more thing which I actually yesterday I was discussing this with one of my NDC co-mates.
Sir.
See, for any armed force, 20% is capital. Capital means new acquisitions.
Hmm.
80% is revenue, which is maintenance and salaries. Maintenance, infrastructure, salaries. Okay, in the past, say about 5, 10 years, I would say 10 years, PLA has grown exponentially.
Some 400 ships.
Whatever. Which means that their capital expenditure has gone up.
Hmm.
Tremendous. Hereafter, to maintain this 30-40% of capital which they put in the past 4 to 5 years, they have to spend 4 times that in revenue. I hope you're getting it. The amount of money which they have to put to maintain the current fleet. It's one thing to expand, the other thing is to maintain. Maintenance is just not about the platform. The platform, the weapon systems, the infrastructure, and most importantly, ammunition. See, buildings will will stand for about say 2 decades, 3 decades. There's no problem. Then a wharf, if you make, will be there for another bloody century from my side with repairs. What do you do with ammunition? Ammunition has a fixed life.
Yeah, yeah.
After that, it starts degrading. Okay, you can't do much. You'll do one life extension. After that, what? And ask anyone, the costliest, one of the costliest chunk of military expenditure is ammunition. Okay, and if you have the latest technology, which they're all trying, it's costly. You can't just replace it overnight. So this, from a cost perspective, I think it's going to hit China very hard, or probably it started hitting China hard.
Especially with a sinking economy, you'll
That's
find it.
my. And if you, again, let me go beyond. If you put this cost and see where China's economy is going, will it break even? Because look, why is India not putting money into its armed forces beyond a point? Because there are other places where India feels that it needs money. I mean, that's a political call, it's a social call, it's a societal call, it's a national call. If China's national call is to put money in its armed forces, vis-a-vis putting money to fund their aging society, you're going to have a problem, isn't it? So I think their payoffs which they're taking are more towards being more better armed and securitized than having social stability. So we'll see how it pans out, but this is my guess.
Let's move to the ground forces, sir.
Yeah,
Um, the I want to stick to Ladakh, sir. The
maybe we'll go to Yangtze also.
yeah, we'll go to Yangtze and Ladakh. See, there are two things that, and I'm just picking out these videos that the Chinese military themselves are putting out as propaganda videos. So when you kind of stop them and see them and this and that, one, you see that tube going around their nose. I mean, that's interesting to me that there's another thing that a person needs to carry at 16, 17,000 feet, where you can't even probably put a muffler on your head because it's so bloody heavy. The weight increases. Secondly, acclimatization, and I spoke about this in my video. A lot of people said, yeah, you're right. Acclimatization not done high altitude, you'll go to a dump. Thirdly, sir, the Yangtze, that video that came out, which was probably not exactly that place, but the whole body language of the Chinese that was standing there, that guy was trying to fix his mask, and he didn't say this is an army. When you look at, let's say, US Marines or the US Army, they're pretty solid chaps. Look at them, ah, yeah, this is a these guys.
Yeah,
That's all I want to
look,
say.
let no, let me put it this way. Let's put things in perspective. They might not look great. I don't go by looks.
But of course, but
Okay, whether tough looking or not. What one sees is they're pretty well equipped.
yeah,
Probably
absolutely.
more well equipped than necessary, right? This business of giving oxygen tells you something. It tells you that they're putting in people without due acclimatization, or they're psychologically worried about it. Okay, so I mean, I've had about 4 or 10 years in high altitudes. I never carried oxygen. Of course, I used oxygen at certain places where you're at a height where it's better to resuscitate yourself with oxygen or re-energize yourself with some oxygen before you do anything else, right? Or you had a very tough day, it's good to have more oxygen. So you take this thing, or you flying out of the blue. I mean, suddenly, if you're going at about 20,000 altitude on a chopper, the pilot could have a blackout for lack of oxygen.
They're
So
breathing
you
pure.
so you keep having oxygen and going because you're not in a pressurized cabin, nothing. You're in thin air. So it's not that you shouldn't use oxygen, but it's not recommended to use oxygen uh, as a regular thing. That your house is also oxygenated. You are living in oxygen. Your lungs have to get used to that oxygen there to be for you to be battle fit, and it takes some doing. It takes real doing. Let me tell you this. Again, there is a difference between uh, just surviving at 14 to 18,000 feet vis-a-vis operating at 14 to 18,000 feet. There's a big difference. I mean, if I look back, there was a time when the high altitude, one of my tenures, when I was a major, I was given a long range patrol where we had to, I had to go into this place called Tolungla, somewhere near Rangzi only. And those days, the communications were bad. I had to do a lot of cross country, move. It just so happened, mind you, I'd come down to Chennai only, uh, and then went back to high altitude. Uh, Matter of about 3 months, and before that, I was doing some other job in the unit, normal routine, high altitude routines are this thing. And then came on leave, got back. Within about 15, 20 days of getting back and getting your bearing straight, I was told go on this patrol. It was about 14, 15 days. The first 5, 6 days was pure hell for me. And mind you, just about 3 months of between the last patrol and this, the first 4 days was pure hell. I couldn't move, I couldn't walk, I couldn't do anything. And it involved going around about 20 to 30 kilometers daily at about anything between 14 to 16,000.
Whoa.
So that's the base height. I mean, it's not something great. That's the base height. Uh, it it was only after the first week that I started feeling comfortable there. And you moving with weight on your shoulder, everything. And mind you, I'm not saying that I'm a superhuman or something. I was an average guy, right? There are chaps who are much tougher than me in the army. I've seen them. But even for them, it takes that time to get used to it, and then you get the confidence that you can do what you want, and your body becomes lighter. Automatically, it's very funny. You don't lose weight; you'll become lighter. You feel lighter when you acclimatize. You're able to go. You're able to climb. You're able to walk
Live a
without.
normal life.
Hmm?
Normalish life.
Yeah. So there's a big difference. And when I see these youngsters wearing, oxygen pipes and coming like snowmen and astronauts out there, fighting capability, I don't know. I don't think. I have grave doubts.
What did their body language tell you, sir? Especially in that.
See, the body language in high altitude is all a matter of higher. I told you. I remember a couple of days in the initial stages of that. Why am I getting you back to that patrol? Is because high altitude is a different kind of fitness. The first 4, 5 days, I was, I mean, I was in a bad shape. Let me be very honest with you. When I think back, because mentally I was not there.
Hmm.
Mentally I was out of gear completely. Okay, of course, it had to do something with physicals, all that, but that mental acclimatization was not there. The physical acclimatization also lacked, so I was in a very bad shape. But given 1 week, 10 days, 15 days, constant every day, going about 20 to 30 kilometers in that time, by the time I was getting back, I was absolutely fit. I could never imagine that I could be doing so much in high altitude, and that is something which comes with a lot of experience.
Bottom line, sir.
And mind you, that tenure was my third tenure in high altitude.
क्या बोलूं
Okay.
सर आगे? But General Naravne, who did this little podcast with Smita Prakash, he mentioned that the rate of transfer of the Chinese troops was very high.
Yeah,
He said the frontline guys would not be able to recognize a chap and he would just get changed.
that's one thing. When you have 2 years turnover, conscription was only for 2 years. That fellow effectively is in a unit for about 1.5 years. He comes. So there's a see. This is one of the problems I said with Agniveers also.
Mm.
The rate of change of people is so fast that there's no teamwork. There's no teamwork, and in high altitudes and in mountain warfare, the essence of life is teamwork. I'm not talking of victory. I'm essence of life.
Survivability and teamwork. Yes, sir.
Yeah, is you, unless you survive, you can't.
Indeed, sir.
And I
Yes.
still remember going in patrols with say three people, all three of us sleeping together, men. I mean, people say, "Oh, officers live a different life." No, you sleep together so that the body warmth of each other rubs off on you. Survival. Okay. So uh, what General Naravne said is absolutely right. Then there's a issue of again mental. The chap comes initially. The first time I remember when I went to Sikkim, that was my first high altitude. People said, "Oh, yes, ये हो जाता है, वो हो जाता है, something will happen, nothing will happen." And mind you, I was just about 22, 23 years old. But by the time I had reached high altitude, I was absolutely a mental wreck. When I say mental wreck, so much has
Yeah.
been fed into you that you don't know where the hell you are. It's only after some time you live there and you daily see Kanchenjunga first thing in the morning, you know, and then you say, "Oh hi," and get on with it, and then you become mentally fit and tough. So I wonder what would be going through these men, you know, in these. A- so I have my reservations. With such fast turnovers, and so you will not have your units are not mentally fit, and your men are not well teamed up. Not a good thing for high altitude.
Just the Air Force, sir. The sheer factor that they have to hire Western pilots to do, you know, carrier-based operations and this and that. And of course, I don't know, did they mean it by a propaganda piece or not? I have no idea. But they put out a piece which talked about junior pilots, barely 1 month completion of their flying training school for their fighter training and all that, are going to intercept, in quotes, American jets in the South China Sea.
Look, uh,
I mean,
why they
so
put this out, I don't know.
my
Okay,
dad is a pilot. When I told him this, he said, "ये तो fully off भी नहीं होंगे."
yeah.
Straightforward.
Yeah, what your father said is right, and I would like everyone to understand. There's a difference between a chap who can fly and then the chap who can do operational flying. Again, if you're a tourist, you can go to high altitude, but can you fight in that? No, you can't. You just high altitude acclimatize. You're going to do some skating, see some donkeys and all that, and come back. It's a different thing to fight out there because that's operational fitness. Same thing for flying. You can fly, but are you operationally fit? When you know you're operationally fit, you should know the terrain, you should know the updrafts, you should know your maneuvers. Everything put together is operational flying. You should have situational awareness. You should know where you are at what point of time, and you should know where you go and what you will see and what anticipation. In all this, you're doing a dogfight or something, whatever it is. So operational flying is different, and this is different. The fact that they sent out a youngster against the US aircraft, they're taking a chance, or they probably don't have, you know. So we don't know. The fact that, look, I don't decry them getting hold of people from Western pilots to train the aircraft, but there's uh, I mean, they're just filling up a gap, and there are enough Westerners for money who'll wherever. Okay, and they're making the best out of them. So I don't decry them that. But I think you've put all this together. Is it a well-trained army? I have my doubts. And there's another thing which I made a mention, but let me put it this way. I'll connect two, three different things and then we'll talk. We all know that the Chinese goods are not that reliable. जैसे ना चाइना का माल है चल गया तो चांद तक नहीं
वरना
तो
शाम,
हाँ?
वरना शाम तक.
वरना शाम तक. So that's the reputation of any Chinese item you have. And yesterday I read a report where now a lot of BRI projects are showing up with cracks and defects and things like that, which we've spoken of differently.
Yeah, yeah.
Quality is poor. Will it be different in their aircraft?
The Myanmaris don't think so. So
Will it be
they
different in
also,
their tanks? Will it be different in their ships? Again, what is the evidence? The evidence is Pakistan or Myanmar or Bangladesh or anyone who has Chinese equipment, military equipment, is crying today. So if you put all that, you club everything together, how do you think that what equipment is there within the PLA is reliable? And how much of it is battle worthy? Now, add the fact which I spoke to you earlier of the effort required for maintenance. It's one thing to induct
build it.
10 ships, but it's another thing to maintain those 10 ships.
What is your operational level? Yes, sir.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, the fact is that, and we don't know, they talk that I have the biggest navy. How will it function? Have they ever moved such a thing? Mass of ships to do what they have to do? Untested. So there are question marks on the entire PLA. They're putting a lot of money. Well, they can scare off Philippines and Taiwan and Vietnam and all that. Okay, they can make nuclear noises. They can talk of hypersonic missiles. But look, hypersonic missiles and a few jets don't win you the war, don't win you the battle. It
Let's
takes
talk
more.
about that. The rocket forces. I mean, just the last comment on that before we open on this thing, because a lot of analysts in India say that the Chinese have a very very heavy rocket,
Yeah,
presence.
they
And
must. Yeah, I agree. I agree. They have a very strong rocket force. Now, see, uh, a rocket force is a cheaper way of delivering firepower through air or air power than uh, a proper manned air force. So you adopted that route very smartly. There's no doubt about it. But will the rocket force do everything? Will it win the war? No. No rocket force has ever won a war. That's history. It's not, even the Russian rocket force is not winning the war. It will create conditions for victory. Ultimately, victory has to be by boots on ground, short range fighting. Okay,
that's
that is not going to happen in a hurry with China. That's my guess. So, at the end of the day, if you're going to spend your entire rocket force in creating situation which you cannot exploit, you're out of the equation.
and that's one of the reasons why I think in 2018 Xi Jinping told his commanders, stop running a kindergarten. We're an army.
They, the my guess, and I think in India we overestimate PLA. My guess is that they're not operationally that effective as people say. Oh, they have stamina. What bloody stamina they have? They know the ability. They say you can build up. They got great, uh, uh, communications. Because of communications, they can mass troops there. What will that mass of troops do there? Oh, I keep hearing this from this one of these SP chaps. What's that? SP is Australian Strategic some Policy Institute. Or they keep saying that because they have roads till the watershed, or they will alter force balance. So what if you alter force balance? You have to sustain that force balance which you built up. So there are issues which we have not factored in when you see the operational effectiveness of PLA. I come back to that. Every force is very strong on paper till the first bullet is fired. Okay?
For that, I think we need to just remember the Chinese UN missions when they ran
Yeah,
away from. Yeah,
people ran away. And you
totally.
have to also understand this demography business.
Yeah,
अभी तो बोल दिया कि उनके one single child है, they don't have men, their births are reducing. Why will I lose my only child in Tibet or in what will
dark.
it, Andaman Sea or wherever? Okay, I'll not send them. And if you see their problem conscription, they're not getting people with good physical qualities also.
Yeah, they reduce the height standards. Yeah,
Reduce
yeah,
the height standards, eyesight standards, and this is again from their sources I'm talking. They have problems. I mean, my view is that uh, we overestimate them. Some people say, "Oh well, Shankar, you are underestimating the PLA." I always say, "Okay, fine, I underestimate the PLA. You're overestimating. What's the via media?"
yeah. Beach cut.
So you have to pitch that via media and get them. I am very clear about it. Uh, a strong force for deterrence and force projection is different from a strong force for battlefield victory. Okay? And in this, the difference between these two in the PLA is lack of experience.
Quote of the day. Guys, pin it up on your walls. That's the quote of the day. That's the military quote of the day. Because I'm not wanting to. Let me just put this out. This episode is not to show them down. This
No, no,
episode
no.
bust the myths
So,
which exist in India.
yeah, we see, look, when you have to fight, you'll fight, and even they'll fight. I'm sure
Yeah,
whatever I
I'm
say, they
sure.
will fight. There's no doubt about it. Is PLA a strong army? Definitely. When you talk it against many countries, it's a strong army. There's no doubt about it. Does it have mass? It has mass. But is the that mass is the man-machine mix balanced? I have a doubt. What is the evidence on ground? Can they maneuver? No. That's proven in Eastern Ladakh. They don't maneuver. Okay. When you outmaneuver them, they'll backtrack. That's also proven. You have to see what has happened in Yangtze and what happened in Eastern Ladakh to understand their battlefield proficiency.
Exactly.
If I were in, if I were to leverage Yangtze, that post out, I would have had to outmaneuver that post and sit behind that post. Look, when after all, Bana post was called Khed post. Okay, it was almost unassaultable. It was not even forget unassaultable. It was unassailable. Till this, some mad guy who was the CEO of 8 Jack, 8 Jack Ally, which is General Satish Dua's unit. Right? I mean, why else? Like, and the mad company commander put continued with that assault, and it took someone, like Subhadar Bana Singh, an
Namaste.
honorary captain, yeah, to do an assault And that assault didn't happen over 1 day, 2 days. If you go into it, it happened over 2, 3 days. They had to fix
Correct.
ropes and climb ropes, and it was attacked by one person, two persons. Against all odds, against unthinkable odds. Superhuman effect. And his was not the only thing we did. You go to other places there, Ashok, you cut, what, how we have done is something. Okay, if you've gone or Bilafonla Glacier. Now, why this is important is if they wanted to grab Yangtze, they should have had the ability to outmaneuver us through the most inhospitable terrain and leverage this post out. They couldn't do it.
Couldn't do it.
Mind you, if you read the 62 operations, they did it. If you read the 62 operations, I've always wondered, I've been there. And why am I talking? I've been through the trails which these chaps came down by. I used to wonder, how did these Chinese come here? They must be real tough. How did they come here, exist 100 kilometers, 200 kilometers in depth, and put a roadblock? And our chaps ran. And I used to wonder, what if they came with a battalion, put a roadblock? What if you did the same to them, cut off their supplies? And you were in a position to cut off their supplies, you couldn't. Will the current lot of PLA do it? I don't think so.
And I'm not a military guy, so I can only
No,
read what is there in front of
look,
me, which tells me a lot.
there's a place called Nukmadong. Nukmadong was a place where a Chinese battalion, one battalion came and put a roadblock. And Nukmadong was between between Bomdila and Sela. It was behind the Sela garrison. In those days, there was an entire brigade plus or equivalent sitting on Sela garrison. One battalion comes, sit behind you, and you pack up and come. The amount of what shall I say, psychological effect of one battalion sitting behind you in defenses unhinged our defenses completely because we're mentally not prepared.
Hmm. Imagine today if we do that to them, it's going to be.
Yeah, we did that. When we went
Kailash,
and sat on top of them and Kailash range and on their face, okay, you didn't even go behind. If you went behind, they would have run off.
Kailash, Galwan, even Yangtze, same things we went
Same
behind.
thing. My conviction is that we are overrating the PLA. Chalo, I think we've had enough discussion. Let's ask questions.
Let's get into questions, guys. Before I do, like the video, please. Very few likes as of now, so please hit that like button. Touch. It's just a small touch. Doesn't cost much. Just touch it out. Uh, if you guys are new to the channel and I see some new names here, please do subscribe. And if you can, please do help out the depth of effort. There is a code right on top of the screen that you can scan, or you can become a member or send us super stickers, super chats. Anshuman, thanks for your contribution. This question is a bit out of the purview of this discussion, but I'll request Jan Shankar for a short answer. BQ really recently put out a survey which shows India's perceived threats. Who, according to you, are India's biggest allies and why?
I think we'll give it a skip. This is not the day to discuss that. We
It's
can
not
discuss
a
it on a different day. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that. Global Office 2.0 says, do PLAs really carry oxygen soldiers to patrol those heights? Is this a regular thing that we've been seeing, sir?
Not necessarily, but I think many times we've seen. So it gives you a bit of a 50-50 thing. Maybe they come fully oxygenated for operations.
I mean, they were showing it off, right? We've got oxygenated beds and rooms and this and that.
Yeah.
The guys are sleeping around. So, best is when this is happening, our guys are playing football, volleyball on the other side. So
Yeah.
you wonder, yeah. So when it comes to submarines of India and China, though we have a lot less quantity, but in terms of quality, are we at par with them?
Yeah, yeah. We quantity no, quality yes.
Ashish says, which professional army publishes dailies? PLA looks like the Pakistani army. Look at any professional army, they don't publish anything like that.
Well, Ashish, let me put it. I have a lot of respect for the Pakistani army, whether you like it or not. Whether it's not a matter of conviction or anything. The fact is that Pakistani army is a professional army. Okay, it fights. It knows how to fight. So let's respect this thing. And uh, then they're from the same stock after all, right? We generally understand how they behave, and they're tough. And we've seen them across Siachen. I've seen them across the LC. I've seen them across the desert sector also. The guys know what they're doing. And I've also seen some of these Pakistani officers in courses abroad. They're good. So where they're good, you have to give it. I think the Chinese army as a whole is a notch lower. So leave it at that.
Thank you, Aman, for your contribution. Just a second, sir. Yeah. Uh, there, there's just so many questions. I just lost track of where I was. Just along. Here it is, sir. Ask General, in the event of a conflict, China may have the disadvantage of first one or two, might have the advantage for the first 1 or 2 weeks. After that, it's all India. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't think we'll come to that. My personal view is we'll not come to that. Look, there's no history of any two nuclear powers going head to head for so long. India will not fight China. China will not fight India. We'll only keep doing the small things. The threshold of war, you have to understand, between nuclear neighbors has been virtually established. The top end is what happened in the Kargil war. The bottom end is what happened in
Yangtze, Galwan.
Yangtze, Galwan, and all that. War will be fought within this, right? There'll be a lot of maneuvering, a lot of talk. It might take 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Action will be in one place for some days. It'll be in another place for some days. Chutputs. But if you're looking at an all-out war, it's too costly and too risky for both any nuclear country to do. Okay, so we'll leave it at that. I don't think we right. We don't. We and I also don't think whether they'll be able to succeed in the first 2 weeks. What is the premise? The premise is that they have to succeed. Is it? What if they lose in the first 1 week?
Yeah, that's been known to happen. Amanjot, I
So,
think your question has
like I
been well.
said, this is the ideal thing. Every army is strong till the first bullet is fired.
Bullet fires. Come back to the same thing, sir.
Mm.
Amanjot, I think your question has been well answered about the quantitative and the qualitative part of it. Little emperors and this and that, sir has already answered that, so I won't take it up. Uh, and yeah, South China see how the world can control this Chinese influence within this
Yeah,
area.
already it's happening. So already you see, I saw a report which said that the Americans could reappear into Subic Bay. They had a big base in Subic Bay. The moment
Yeah,
you get back into Subic Bay, they'll get controlled. Even Vietnam is some reclaiming some land and making an island of its own.
islands there. Hmm.
Yeah. So the moment all this happens, and Japan is now, mm, up the defense budget. Though Japanists are not, it'll clearly hem in China all these actions along the first island chain, right? So they will
That's
get constrained in the South China Sea also. Though they are strong at this point of time, they're very strong in the South China Sea.
two parts, sir. So bear with me, sir. We don't get a feel of how the PLA really is because we only see their conscripts. Yeah, they will be weak. What about the regular PLA?
Well, what's the regular PLA?
It's like they want to fool us, and I'd expect that kind of deception from them, sir.
No, no. Look, you have to understand that there's no regular PLA. Regular PLA also has that many conscripts only.
At least 20% of their entire force is the regular PLA.
Yeah. And then there's no regular PLA. When you're talking of the regular people, they have been in all battalions, all units. Okay. There is nothing of that. They, at this point of time, 50% of their forces NCOs who are more than 2 years of service. Well, I would put about 30 to 40% are hardcore regular chaps, and 70% are all about Agnivir variety.
This is an interesting. I think I mentioned this about the UN missions. If we need to actually see how
Yeah,
the Chinese fight a war, we see how they performed in UN missions, and UN missions they ran away.
it's only in
Uh,
one mission that they ran away, so I'll not generalize it. But if you take that mission, you take all the other actions, the Chinese soldier comes out poorly. That's about all.
I think China is scared to death in the army during war because they
Yeah,
must have been a single child for their parents. That's the reason they didn't tell the real deaths in Galwan. Your opinion?
yeah, I agree. They don't want to. See, the thing is that if they had declared more deaths in Galwan, then they were bound to take some other action, and then their face was down. Then there are a lot of issues. There are a lot of political issues in that action at Galwan. For for most of us in India, it was a military action. For the Chinese communists, this whole Galwan incident was a political action. They were looking more at it politically.
सर आपने मेरा क्लोजिंग कमेंट जो आपसे पूछने वाला था वो अभी मत करो. So political interference के बारे में we'll talk
Okay,
about it.
fine, chalo. Right, okay.
Guys, wait till the end of the show because I've got doozy of a question to ask General Shankar, which will tell you a lot more about the PLA than what we've we've talked about the capabilities. The last question will be about the mindset. The Chinese fighter engines need replacement after 2,000 hours compared to Western ones that last 8,000 hours. So that's the edge in material science that the West has over him. Engines are hard to master. That's true.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. Though I don't
That's
know whether their engines need replacement or overall after 2000. I'm not
WS11, sir. WS11, yes, sir.
fine.
Pakistanis said that.
Same. Then the matter is QED. See, that's why I said their equipment is, questionable. Their manpower commitment, everything is questionable. They have a lot of mass. So if you can handle this mass intelligently, it's your day.
Hmm. Hmm. That's a big point, sir. What will such huge rocket force even work in Himalayas? I mean, it would work only up to a certain amount. Would it be lethal on flat grounds, but Himalayas?
See, if you have a huge force like rockets, you will use it and you would be effective to some extent because they have a fairly good uh, communication network. They have a fairly good, reconnaissance network. They've got a fairly good surveillance network, right? Space and all that. So it will have its effects wherever. The only thing which we don't know about their rocket system is how accurate they are. If they're unguided, their effective efficacy will be very low. If they are guided and all that, they will be high. Because I don't think they have the capability to ensure that their unguided rockets are effective. And I'm making this guess from what I've seen of their firing videos which they put out.
Hmm. I mean, one time you had described it कि यार एक ही rocket को 5 जगह से shoot करना
Yeah,
है.
that's right. From that, it doesn't seem to be very effective.
Yeah. So, I think in lieu of loans, Pakistan generals are teaching the PLA. Your views?
We don't know. We don't know because there's no news of this. There's no. Yeah.
Uh, but this is quite an interesting question, sir. I must say, you know, you really wonder sometimes.
For whatever reason, there's no evidence to suggest that the Pakistanis are teaching the Chinese or Chinese are accepting Pakistan to teach them. Even during the Eastern Ladakh days, we came to know that they had hired people from East European countries,
Hmm.
not Pakistanis. So we don't know.
So their mastery of commercial drone is admirable. Could they be mobilized?
Well, they have drones which fly in altitude. They have good ones. They have reports are there. So let's expect all that. That's part of war. If we have to have a war with them, it's part of it. Deal with it.
Okay, Vaman, I think you're quite insistent to ask this question, so I'll take it up. But it really it's a light version. But anyways, why can't we place BrahMos where which we know to be pinpoint accurate instead of our men and warn them to not cross the
Hey,
LAC?
there's not a one-to-one replacement that BrahMos replacement. BrahMos has a different role, and you can't always say I'll start my war with BrahMos.
Yeah. Vaman, I appreciate your sentiment. I understand where you're coming from, but
Hey, remember, BrahMos is a very costly weapon to use. 30 crores per missile.
yeah. So now coming to my last question. The PLA soldier does not take oaths on the flag, sir. He takes oath to the leader of the Communist Party of China. So it's like I won't want to call it a militia, but just for the understanding of the structure of it, they're an army, there's no question. But that's how they kind of operate. They're a private force of the CPC. Uh, there are political commissars, there are a huge amount of political training that they go through rather than actually battle tactics and stuff like that, which is coming out today when they're doing these hard resets. And Xi Jinping recently asked his soldiers, sabzi sabzi mil rahi hai tumko border pe and all that stuff. So that was another funny part of it. But anyway, that tells you the worst logistic systems. Coming back to the point, the interference of the politics of this kind, of an authoritative politics where demands would be there, need. How does it affect the operational capability of armed force when you're not answerable to the people of the country? You're not fighting for the land. You're fighting for a party.
Well, you have to understand for a man on ground who's in the front line, it doesn't matter.
Really, sir?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. How does it matter to Sipai's Boop Singh or equivalent in Chinese army to think whether he's fighting for the nation or for the communists? It doesn't matter. He'll fight because he's on a unit. He has to fight. He has to fight because he's part of a army. Where it matters is at command level. Where does it matter is at a decision taking level. And
Hmm.
that is why the first question is important. The lack of commanders. Then they have this dual command system, a political commissioner and the operational commander. So that dual thing puts unreasonable load on the man on ground. That's the problem, right? So who is he faithful to? Should he be faithful to the political commissar or should he be faithful to the operational commander? So divided loyalties. So all these things come into play. It's a complex system. At the same time, one must also understand that the political commissar is, what shall I say? How do I put it? Yeah, the history indicates that a lot of political commissars of Russia died during Second World War, leading men. They're not. The system was not so bad. And many of these political commissioners held the Russian lines together, okay, when the Germans were advancing.
Yeah, yeah.
So the political commissar system has some value. You shouldn't just throw it out of the bin, into the bin just like that. It has some value. Does it fit the modern army? Does it fit the demography of China? Does it fit the politics of China? Does it fit the operational terrain of China in which China has to fight? These are the questions we have to think of.
The risk-taking capability of a commander or a pilot or a
It's very low. It's very low. It's very low for many factors. I mean, again, they're all unknowns. We don't know really. We are talking from what we have seen and their social and demographic conditions.
G, G, G.
You will always find that odd guy who's going to come up bravely. Let's
Of
not,
course,
yeah, okay.
they did
And the
fight back in
communist
Galwan.
and the
They were-
communist edicts and the party system itself will strengthen the army. The discipline, which is draconian, will
Mm.
hold the army and make it fight. So don't think it's going to be a walkover. Fighting PLA will not be a walkover. You're going to fight. You're going to fight with brains. Eventually, your strength will show.
True, indeed, sir. And I'm going to put this for a little bit of a funny note. General, have you ever received a phone call from Xi Jinping requesting you to stop pounding China and Z?
No, but they put a monkey on my back.
Yeah, that keeps happening. That's
That
right.
gets happening. Yeah.
That keeps happening. We keep getting some love mail in Twitter and this and that. That's okay. That's fine. Sir, thank you so much. This was a must required thing to be done. Of course, guys, I if you want more details, of course, I also feel that we didn't cover full details today. You want to get more details, watch the six shows that we have done. We've also done follow-ups on those shows before, so you can go to my channel, go to Chinese military PLA, and the playlist is there. You can watch the entire thing. They'll give you more detail about what we are talking about. We've spoken about the mindset, the physiology, the psychology, whole lot of things. But this was a much required episode that needed to be done because I really felt that India is again regressing back to thinking that the Chinese is 10 feet tall, in spite of what again and again happens in uh, on the line of control. So, sir, thank you so much for busting the myths, and as always, it's great to have you on the show. Till next time, sir. Jai Hind.
Thank you.